Hello guys, my name is Spyros, and in this video as well as in the next ones we are going to create a mediator from scratch. I'm not saying that you should use your own mediator. If you want to use one, the library from Jimmy Bogart, it's pretty awesome and you should probably use that, but we are going to do it for educational purposes. In today's video we are going to deal with requests and handlers that don't return anything for simplicity reasons. In the next one we will implement that return type, and finally in the third one we are going to create a request pipeline. So let's go and see what I have in my code. I have a hero API that will be the project that we will test our mediator. In the entities folder it has a hero with just an ID and a name. In the repositories I have a hero repository that holds the data in a static list of heroes, and we have exposed two methods, the getAllAsync and the addAsync. And finally in my program.cs I have two endpoints, one for creating a hero and the one for getting all the heroes back. So now let's go and implement our mediator. Let's close all that. I'm going to create a new project and will be a class library, and I'm going to call it YT from YouTube Mediator .abstractions, so we can have a different project only for the abstractions, although it's not necessary. So abstractions. Okay, let's delete that class one and let's create with our request. So it would be an interface. Let's call that I request, and we also going to need an I base request. So it's not necessary for this part of the video, but since we are going to have a generic request of something, we will need it later. So let's say public interface I base request, and let's have the I request implement the I base request. Okay, then we will need a request handler interface, so let's create that. Let's say I request handler, and that would be an interface. Okay, and in here we will have one method that will be the handle async, but first let's add something to the interface. Let's say in the request, and we are not going to talk in this video about contravariants and the in keyword, so we will have a generic T request, and we need that T request to be a reference type and also implement the I request. And now we'll have one method, it will be a task, and let's call that handle async, and we will be accepting that T request. So T request, and also let's add the cancellation token. So cancellation token, and let's say that equals with default. Okay, and finally for our abstractions project, let's create an I mediator interface. So I mediator, and we will have one method to be implemented here. It will be a task, and let's call that send async, and we will accept a generic T request. So let's say T request, and also a cancellation token, but with default, and let's add the constraint that T request is a reference type and implements the I request. Okay, so we have our I request, we have the interface that the handlers of each request should implement, and we have the interface of the dispatcher, the one that's going to send the requests to their handlers. So now let's go and create those implementations. I'm going to create a new project. It will be a class library as well, and I will call that YouTube Mediator. Okay, let's remove that class one. Let's add the references to our abstractions project. Okay, and let's create the mediator. Let's say mediator, and we need that to implement the mediator. So let's move it to a new line, and now we will need to inject a service provider so that the mediator library will work only with default ASP.NET dependency injection. So I will say private read-only service provider, and we will call that service provider. And in here all we need to do is to take the handler from the service provider since it's going to be registered in the DI container. So let's say var handler equals with service provider dot get required service, and for that we will need to add a nugget package. So let's go to our nugget packages, and let's search for microsoft.extension.dependencyinjection.abstractions. Let's add it, and now let's try again. So get required service, and we need to define the type of that handler. So it will be an iRequest handler of tRequest. So tRequest, and now let's await that handler to handle that request. So, and let's make it async as well. So await handler dot handle async, and let's pass the request and the cancellation token. And finally we need to register the mediator itself as well as all the request handlers. So let's create another class. Let's call that dependency injection. That will be a static class. So public static class dependency injection, and we'll have a public static add mediator method, and it will return an iService collection. So iService collection, we will call it add mediator, and it will be an extension method to the service collection. So this iService collection, let's call that services. And also we need an assembly to scan for the handlers, so let's also accept an assembly. So assembly. First let's add the mediator. Let's say services dot add, let's say scoped. We can also accept the lifetime, but we're not going to do that here. Let's register everything as scoped. So mediator, and the implementation will be the mediator. And now for scanning the assembly to find all the request handlers, we could write our own code. And if you are interested in scanning about implementation of generic interfaces, I have a video about that, but for now we're going to use a nugget package called Scrator, which will make our life very easy. So let's go to manage nugget packages, and let's look for Scrator. Let's add it. And now let's see how easy it is. Let's say services.scan, and let's say from assemblies. So from assemblies, and we will pass the assembly that we want to scan. And now we need to say add classes, and we need the classes that are assignable to the iRequest handler so that they implement it. So let's say assignable to, and let's pass the type of the iRequest handler. and we need to add them as implemented interfaces. So let's say as implemented interfaces and with scoped lifetime. So with scoped lifetime. And now what this will do is going to scan for the assemblies for the implementations of the iRequest handler, and we'll add them as a scope to the DI container. So finally let's return the services, and now let's add to our API reference to the Mediator. So Mediator, and let's try to refactor our add endpoint. So first of all, let's go to the services and add the Mediator. So builder services dot add Mediator, and then we need to pass the assembly. Let's pass the executing one. Okay, so I have an app folder. I forgot to mention that I have a create hero command. It's just a command with a name, doesn't have anything else. So let's go back to our program to inject our Mediator for now, and we will implement the handle later. So we will inject the iMediator, and we will call that Mediator. So instead of calling our repository directly, we will say await mediator.sendAsync new create hero command, and we need to pass a GUID and the name. So GUID.new GUID and the name from the request. And I don't know why that complains. Oh, it only needs the name, not an ID. And now it complains because our create hero command doesn't implement the iRequest, but we are going to change that. So let's go back to our command and let's make that implement the iRequest. And as you can see, that does not complain anymore. So let's finally create our handler. So let's say public class create hero handler. And that will be an iRequest handler of that create hero command. And now, as you can see, we need to implement the handle async interface. So that will be async, and let's inject our repository. So private read-only iHero repository. Let's call that repository. And now all we need to do is await repository.addAsync. Let's say new hero GUID.new GUID and the request name. So request.name, and everything should work fine now. Let's try it and also debug it so we can understand it better. So I'll open Postman. I will make that bigger. Okay, we have our get endpoint. If we send that, we'll get back an empty array since we don't have any heroes. But if we go in here and in the body, as you can see, I have already created the request. So we'll add Spider-Man. I'll hit send. We get back to 100. Okay, and now if we try to list the heroes again, we get back Spider-Man. So let's change that to Iron Man and put some breakpoints. Let's go first to our Mediator. Okay, let's send that request. So now, as you can see, we will try to get the handler from the DI container, and the request, as you can see, is a create hero command. So we'll try to get that specific handler. So if we continue, we can see that we have our create hero handler, and finally it will go to our create hero handler in here. So it went there. I'll hit continue. We have okay, and now if I try to list my heroes again, we have Spider-Man and Iron Man. So I think that first part with requests and handlers that don't return anything wasn't very difficult. As I said, in the next one we will have a return type and our handlers will return a response. So that's all I had for this one. If you liked it, please like and subscribe. Thank you for watching and have a nice one.